Caucus night tonight. We're so excited to have you join us and can't wait to hear from all of you. Can't wait to welcome folks from all around Iowa to have a conversation with the senator. So we'll be giving you the opportunity to ask questions live and respond to poll questions on your telephone keypad. If you would like to ask the senator a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press 0 on your telephone keypad. I should have read this before all the sentence repeated. Good morning, my name is Abby. Welcome to today's telephone town hall with Elizabeth Warren. I will be the moderator for this morning's event. I'm excited to welcome Senator Warren to talk with all of you one last time before caucus night tonight. We can't wait to welcome folks from all around Iowa to have a conversation with the senator, so we'll be giving you the opportunity to ask questions live and respond to poll questions on your telephone keypad. If you would like to ask her a question, please press 0 on your phone and you'll be connected directly with one of our volunteer operators. Again, press 0 to ask a question. Okay. Again, my name is Abby, and I'll be hosting this morning's telephone town hall with Senator Elizabeth Warren, where we're connecting with people from across Iowa directly to ask questions on their minds as we head into caucus night. We're going to get started in just a moment, but for those of you just joining us who want to ask a question on today's call, all you have to do is press 0 on your phone keypad to be added into the queue. We're going to try to take as many questions as possible. Again, press 0 to ask a question. And now I'm going to kick it over to Senator Warren.
Good morning. Thank you, Abby, and thank all of you who are on this call this morning. I just want to say a very special thank you to folks in Iowa. It was just a little over a year ago that I got in this race for president, and in that time together, we have done about a zillion town halls and taken a triple zillion number of unfiltered questions. We've done selfies, we've shaken hands, we've done hugs. I've talked to people in parking lots and on sidewalks, in diners. It's been terrific. And I got to say this, Iowans, you asked tough questions and you added great suggestions. And you talked about your families, you talked about your communities, you talked about the kind of changes we need to make and what it would mean if Washington, instead of working for the lobbyists and the giant corporations, actually was doing a little work for your family. In all of this, you have made me a better candidate, and you will make me a better president, and I'm deeply grateful for that. So I'm here in D.C. For the closing arguments on impeachment, but I thought maybe this would be a chance for anybody in Iowa who had a question to be able to ask it. So we're just doing this town hall to take your questions. Let's get started with some questions.
All right, while we're waiting for some folks to submit questions, remember, press 0 if you'd like to ask a question. I'll kick it off. Senator Warren, you've been in Washington for over 7 years. What is the worst case of corruption you have seen, and how can it be fixed by your anti-corruption plan?
So understand, the problems in Washington have been going on for a long time. I watched it when the banks really captured the bank regulators and captured the folks in Congress, so that we had a government, as those bad mortgages were being marketed around the country, we had a government that was basically in the pocket of the big banks. And the regulators just kept saying, sell those mortgages, right up until they crashed the economy in 2008. It was a big part of why I got in the fight, why I came up with the idea for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, why we got that passed into law. President Barack Obama signed it into law in 2010. And in that time, that little agency has forced the big banks to return more than $12 billion directly to people they cheated. But let's face it, the influence of money never let up. The influence of the lobbyists never let up. And now we've seen with the Trump administration, corruption just taken to new lows. I'll just mention one. I'm here for this impeachment, and right at the center of it is this ambassador Sondland. What were his qualifications to be an ambassador? Did he know a lot about foreign policy? Did he know a lot about Europe? Because he's the ambassador to the European Union. No, the answer is he made $1 million contribution to Donald Trump's inauguration campaign. He bought an ambassadorship. And around Washington, nobody's even surprised. Everybody just smiles. That's why I took a pledge. I said, I'm not going to hand out ambassadorships to people who make big contributions. And I asked everybody in this presidential race on the Democratic side to take the same pledge. And so far, most of them just haven't been willing to do that. I feel like we have this big chance to stop the corruption, at least to fight back against it, to get on our front foot. And that's what I'm going to do. This is critical. We have a chance to say we don't want a government where ambassadorships are for sale. We don't want a government that works just for the wealthy and well-connected. And that's why I'm in this fight, and that's why I'm so honored that many people are in it with me. Thanks, Abby. It was a good question.
Thank you, Senator. We're just about ready to open it up to some questions, but first I want to ask our listeners about their plan to caucus tonight at 7 p.m. Are you supporting Elizabeth at your caucus tonight? Press 1 if you're supporting Elizabeth. Press 2 if you're undecided, and we'll talk more with the Team Warren precinct captain tonight at your caucus. Press 3 if you're supporting another candidate. I'll just repeat those options. Press 1 if you're supporting Elizabeth. Press 2 if you're undecided, and we'll talk more with the Team Warren precinct captain tonight at your caucus. Press 3 if you're supporting another candidate. And again, if you just joined us, if you have a question at any time, press 0 on your keypad to get in line. And Senator, you were a public school teacher, so how did your experience as a public school teacher influence your K-12 education plan, and how do you foresee that experience influencing you as a president?
Oh, great question, Abby. So I was a special education teacher. I had 4 to 6-year-olds in public school, and I guess the way it influenced me the most is I believe in public education. I believe in the investments we make in our children, not just in some of our children, but in every single one of our children. And I believe in educators. I believe in public school teachers and counselors and social workers and school nurses and school librarians and the folks who work in the cafeteria and the folks who drive the buses, the people who have made getting our children educated their first priority. So when I got ready to start building an education plan in my run for president, I reached out to teachers. I reached out to educators. I reached out to the teachers' unions because they're the ones out there fighting for our teachers, fighting for our educators, and ultimately fighting for our children. So now I've got a plan. My 2-cent wealth tax gives us the money to put $800 billion into K through 12. That means we can quadruple the funding for Title I schools. It means we can put $50 billion into upgrading the facilities so no kid is going to a school where ceiling tiles are falling down or textbooks are 11 years old. It also means, and this is really important to a special education teacher, it means fully funding IDEA so children with disabilities will have full educational support that they need, all paid for at the federal level by this 2-cent wealth tax on millionaires and billionaires. It also means investing in every single one of our public schools. There's a $1 million innovation grant in this for every single public school, so that public school can have the money to do what they need to do to lift them to the next level of excellence. This is about money, you bet it is. It's about resources, investing in our schools, but it's also about a statement of our values. As a country, how do we build a future? I believe the way we do that is we say, ask those at the top to just pay a little more, and then let's invest in every single young person in this country. That's how we build an America of the future.
Thank you, Senator. All right, we're just about ready to open up the line to questions. Reminder to everyone on the phone, press 0 on your keypad to get in line to ask the question. And now we're going to kick it over to Betsy and Marion with a question about climate. Betsy, you're live.
Okay. Good morning, Elizabeth. How are you?
I'm doing great, Betsy. Whoops. I'm doing great, Betsy. Go ahead.
Oh, there you are. Good. We met in Marion, and I wanted just to ask you to renew for us your thoughts about climate change.
Oh, Betsy. I saw my grandchildren yesterday. They've come to Iowa to see the caucuses and try to be part of it. And it just reminded me again about the critical importance of fighting against climate change. Climate change threatens every living thing on this planet. And as I said to you, what scares me is every time the scientists go back and look again at the data, they find out the problem is worse than we thought and we have less time than we thought. So I think of this as the urgency of the moment. This is not your climate plan versus my climate plan. This is we got to move on a bunch of fronts and we got to do it fast. I'm going to do everything a president can do all by herself, and that includes on day one, no new drilling or mining on federal lands or offshore. Let's stop that. It means bringing farmers in, adding enough money from Washington so that farmers can be on the front lines in the fight against climate change, so they can follow sustainable farming practices and do more on carbon capture. Farmers can be a huge part of the climate solution if we make that financially possible from Washington. I'm completely committed to do that. I work with others like Jay Inslee, and I think we're going to have to pick up our regulatory tools here. So think of it this way. By 2028, I want to get a commitment out of our EPA that all new building of homes and new buildings that come online have to have zero carbon footprint. By 2030, all new cars and light duty trucks, zero carbon footprint. By 2035, all electric production, zero carbon footprint. Those three industries constitute 70% of our carbon footprint right now in America, and we can bring that down. We just have to have the courage to step up and do it. Climate justice is a big part of my climate plan. For decades, we have dumped toxic waste next to communities of color. We've permitted the worst of the polluting industries to be located next to communities of color, and it's had a measurable impact, a terrible impact on the health of children, on the health of seniors, and an economic impact. Who wants to buy property next to a toxic dump? So I make a commitment that climate justice is right at the heart of what I do, and a commitment of $1 trillion that we're going to clean up the communities that we have spent decades burying under climate waste. Another part of this is to think worldwide, not just how we're going to solve this problem in America and bring down our carbon footprint, but how we're going to save this planet. After all, we're only 20% of the carbon footprint, and we got to save the whole planet. So I think of this as we need to do what we do best. We need to invest in science. We need to invest in innovation and technology. We need to invest in fighting back against climate change by building the new ideas and the new equipment that we're going to need. And here's the best part. I've got a plan to increase tenfold what we spend on research about climate. It goes all the way from basic research to the R&D to bring things online. But then to say we can build, anyone can build whatever it is we find through this science if you build it here in the United States of America. That's going to give us about 1 million new manufacturing jobs, good union manufacturing jobs. And that's how it is that we will build toward a real fight against climate change. We'll take those products, use them here in the United States, sell them around the world, give them away around the world if we have to, but we've got to save this planet. Last thing I want to say about this is all of these plans, they're good plans. Oh, and I've got a great one on oceans. I've got a blue ocean plan that we got to do too. But all of these plans, we have to remember, we have to be willing to fight back against corruption in Washington. when you have a candidate who's not willing to do that, who's not willing to stand up against the filibuster, that it's a candidate who's not really going to make change. We have to be willing to take on the industry, and we have to be willing to take on the Senate. Because if Mitch McConnell still uses the filibuster to block everything that happens, then we're not going to get it done on climate, and we can't afford that kind of risk. So I'm in this. I'm in it on climate, and I'm in it to disrupt the current power structures and to say the oil industry, the big polluters, are not going to have a veto over this. We have got to fight back against climate change. We've got to save this planet for our children, for our grandchildren, for our grandchildren's grandchildren.
All right, thank you, Senator, and thank you, Betsy, for the question. For folks just joining us, my name is Abby, and I'm hosting this morning's telephone town hall with Senator Elizabeth Warren, where we're connecting people from across Iowa directly with the senator as we head into caucus night. Before we get to our next question, I would like to ask our listeners about their plan to caucus tonight at 7 p.m. Are you supporting Elizabeth at your caucus tonight? Press 1 if you're supporting Elizabeth. Press 2 if you're undecided, and we'll talk more with the Team Warren precinct captain tonight at your caucus. Press 3 if you're supporting another candidate. Again, press 1 if you're supporting Elizabeth. Press 2 if you're undecided, and we'll talk more with the Team Warren precinct captain tonight at your caucus. Press 3 if you're supporting another candidate. Again, if you have a question at any time, just press 0 on your keypad to get in line. All right, now let's take a question. We're going to kick it over to Allison in Ottumwa. Allison, you're live.
Senator Warren.
Good morning. How are you, Allison?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing just great. I wish I could be in Iowa, but I'm here in Washington. That's what we got to do right now.
Well, you spent a lot of time with us, and we very much appreciate that.
Thank you. I had fun.
My question is related to the increasing cost of college tuition.
Yep.
There's been some discussion that the rapidly increasing tuition is related to student loans being so readily available, which allows colleges in turn to keep, increasing their prices. How would you address this?
So it's a great question, Allison, but actually, let me tell you what I think the data show best. About a generation ago, the states, the taxpayers, the government picked up about $3 out of $4 that it cost to put a kid through college. In other words, the taxpayers were bearing a big part of the burden. And I'm the beneficiary of that from generations back. I went to a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. And it's not just that college was somehow cheaper, to get those professors in and the books and the classrooms and all. It's the taxpayers were making a real investment so that a kid like me had a chance to go to college. So like I said, best data I've seen show about a generation ago, taxpayers were picking up about $3 out of $4 of what it costs to provide a college education. Today, that's dropped in most places to about $1 out of $4. And guess who has to pick up the rest? It has to be picked up by families. Families that are struggling to pay for that, picked up by the students themselves. Now, the availability of student loan debt has probably helped in terms of lifting the cost of college. So here's what I built into my plans for making college tuition free for all of our kids. As you know, I've got that 2-cent wealth tax. I was talking about it earlier. It gives us the money to invest in K-12, about $800 billion. But it also gives us enough money to provide technical school, 2-year college and 4-year college, tuition free to anyone who wants to get an education. It's investing in education. But part of what comes with that is putting constraints on the schools themselves. When they take this money, they have to agree that they are not raising costs and they're not raising other costs. So the schools don't just get to say, oh great, federal government's going to pay for tuition, we'll just keep raising our tuition. Nope. They will be put on a bit of a diet around this. They've got to keep costs low. There are a lot of details in the plan, and I hope you go take a look at it. But it is a problem that you address, Allison, that I attack head on in my plans to make sure that when we make a bigger federal investment, in post-high school education for everyone, that it truly goes into educating people and that we get good benefit for the dollars that we put in. I want to add one more pitch here, if I can, just because you raised it. And that is, even if you're not headed to college, even if you don't have a kid or a grandkid who's headed to college, this is a good investment for America. You know, we learned when the returning GIs were offered that GI Bill that covered both technical school and college, we saw afterwards a huge boost in our economy. This is where much of the innovation in our economy came from. People got post-high school education, and it was not only good for them individually and good for their families in terms of lifting up their salaries and what they could do, it was good for the whole economy. It increased our innovation and our productivity. If you're thinking about how to invest in America of the future, for me, the heart of that is invest in the young people. That's why I put so much money into K-12 and public education, but it's also why I want to invest in post-high school education. That's how we give this economy a real boost. And it's how we open our arms wide to say that every kid, even a kid like me, the daughter of a janitor we didn't have any money, that even a kid like me could have a chance to get that education and a chance to build a really secure life going forward. So thanks for the question, Allison, and thanks for being engaged on this issue. I think it's just critically important.
All right, thank you, Senator. I just want to remind everyone on the phone, if you'd like to ask a question at any time, just press 0 on your keypad to get in line. And now we're going to take our next question. We're going to kick it over to Shirley in Des Moines.
Shirley, are you there?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I would like to know what she intends to do with pre-existing conditions in the health field. We're being denied right now, and I don't think that's fair.
I agree with you, Shirley. Shirley, it's me, Elizabeth, and I agree with you. So I'm going to do two really important things. On the very first day, I'm going to defend the Affordable Care Act, which says you can't discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. Right now, Donald Trump is sabotaging that, and that's leaving a lot of people exposed, and it is wrong. I will be a president that will defend people with pre-existing conditions. And part two, I'm going to get the most help to the most people as quickly as possible. People are struggling with medical bills. I have a feeling I don't have to tell you that, Shirley, that you already know it. And I'll just give you one example, and that is last year, 36 million Americans didn't have a prescription filled because they couldn't afford it. Think about what that means. They were sick enough or worried enough to go to the doctor. The doctor looked at the problem, and he was or she was concerned enough to write a prescription and say, get this filled, this is what you need for treatment. And then the person looked at that prescription and said, it's that or groceries. It's that or pay the rent late. And didn't have the prescription filled because they just couldn't afford it. And that includes people with health insurance. That can't be right in America. So one of the things I'm going to do on the very first day is I'm going to use the power of the president to bring down the cost of prescription drugs. We've got some commonly used prescription drugs that we can reduce costs on. The power is already there. We just need a president with the courage to do it. Bring down the cost of insulin, bring down the cost of EpiPens, bring down the cost of HIV/AIDS drugs. We can save families hundreds of millions of dollars right off the top. So I think that gives us a good start on this, Shirley. But I guarantee you this, I'm going to be there for people with pre-existing conditions. That is part of who we are. Healthcare is a basic human right, and I'll be out there fighting for basic human rights.
All right, thank you, Senator, and thank you, Shirley, for the question. We're going to go to Emily in Madrid with a question about electability.
Hi, Emily.
Hi, Senator Warren. Hi. I'm a I have been out canvassing the last couple weekends, and the thing I have heard over and over again from people who are undecided, and even from those who have made up their mind, is that the most important thing is nominating someone who can beat Donald Trump in November. What is your best pitch to undecided voters who come into my precinct tonight that you are the best candidate positioned to beat Trump in November, particularly in those states that are in the must-win category when you look at the Electoral College map?
Okay, it is a great question. I got to tell you, I agree with him. That is our number one job, is to beat Donald Trump. And can I just add, our number two job is also to win the rest of these races. We need to take back the Senate. We need to expand the number of seats in the House. We need to win state legislative seats. We need to win local elections. So we need a Democratic nominee that our whole party can come together behind and can win on the same set of issues. So here's how I see this. Look, I am the only person in this race who has beaten an incumbent Republican any time in the last 30 years. I beat an incumbent who was popular, had a 60% approval rating, who was telegenic, who had a great story. I gotta say, none of which describes Donald Trump. I started out down 19 points. Even on election day, people were saying, oh, I don't know about this, if it's gonna happen. I ended up beating him by 7.5 points. I know how to fight, and I know how to win. Also, you just sometimes got to talk about this with folks, Emily. Women win. The world has changed since 2016, and right now, women candidates in competitive races have been outperforming men candidates. It's just true. That's how we took back the House in 2018. Women candidates and women and friends of women, also known as men, who came in and said, I'm going to help these candidates. Powerfully important. The other part is what we run on. Look, we can do the old left-right, you say the Democratic talking points and somebody else says the Republican talking points, and we can stay torn apart. We can tear apart as a party, we can tear apart as a nation. But I see this differently. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I have two brothers. All three of my brothers are still there. Two of them are still Republicans. But when we talk about corruption in Washington, when we talk about how Amazon and Eli Lilly and Halliburton reported billions, that's with a B, billions of dollars in profits last year and paid zero in taxes, you know what? We're all on the same side. We say that's wrong. I have the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. That's something we can run on because we're going to be running against the Trump administration, the most corrupt administration in history. We're going to draw that contrast, and that's how we're going to beat him. We're also going to be out there fighting for the things people believe in. Look, a 2-cent wealth tax. The 99% in America paid 7.2% of their total wealth in taxes last year. The top 1/10 of 1%, they paid 3.2%. Let's get a little fairness in this system because when we do, we can invest in universal child care and universal college and canceling student loan debt for 43 million Americans. That brings in a lot of people into this fight. And one more I'll mention. It's about our values. People, after a lifetime of hard work, are entitled to retire with some dignity. And that means protecting and expanding Social Security. Donald Trump said just a couple of weeks ago, he'd think about cutting entitlements. That means cutting Social Security. I have a plan that says the top 2% can pay a little more and we can expand the lifespan of Social Security for decades and increase every Social Security check and disability check by $200 a month. Every one of those plans I've just described is popular not just with Democrats, but also with independents and Republicans. That's how we pull our party together, and that's how we pull in some independents and Republicans, and that is how we'll beat Donald Trump.
All right, thank you so much, Senator. Before we get to our next question, I'd love to hear from everyone on the phone for a moment. What do you most want to see from your next president? Press 1 if it's rooting out the corruption in our government. Press 2 if it's investing in our kids with universal child care, funding public schools, and canceling student debt. Press 3 if it's fighting climate change. Press 4 if it's reforming our criminal justice system. Again, if you have a question at any time, press 0 on your keypad to get in line. And now let's take another question. We're going to kick it over to Chris in Guttenberg.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, hello, Elizabeth Moore. Hello?
Hello, Chris. I'm here.
You there?
I'm here.
Okay, I'm a veteran, and I'm fighting cancer down at the VA hospital. And we talk about medical marijuana. They say they would prescribe it to me if they could, but nothing's done at a federal level. And there's not one veteran in this United States that is on medical marijuana through the VA system. What's your view on this?
Okay, Chris, thanks very much. And thanks for the question. Thanks for what you do. You know, all three of my brothers are veterans. They're all retired. They're all back in Oklahoma now. And we've had our back and forths with the VA and the overall healthcare system and healthcare available to our veterans. Medical marijuana, I have heard from many, many vets, is really something that helps them and important to them. And frankly, something they'd rather do than the addictive opioids and would be more useful. But it's just like you said, Chris, right now, federally, nobody can get any payment for it. So vets are on their own if they want marijuana. So here's my plan. First, we need to legalize marijuana. It's going to be safer for everybody if we do that. We have national standards then on controlling it. You know what you got. You know, kind of like it is with alcohol. You know exactly what you're dealing with, and it makes it safer and better for everyone. We need to do that. And part two, we need to make sure that the VA then has the power to prescribe that medical marijuana to any vet that they believe needs it. You know, you need the full range of healthcare services. We made a promise to everyone who joined up for military service. You come, you make the sacrifice for our country. You ask your family to sacrifice for our country. And we're going to be there for you. We're going to be there with housing. We're going to be there with healthcare. A nation must honor its promises to its vets. My three brothers remind me of this every single day. So, Chris, you better believe that making sure the VA can prescribe medical marijuana is going to be high on my list when I'm president.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Chris, for that question. I'd like to ask everyone again, what do you most want to see from your next president? Press 1 if it's rooting out the corruption in our government. Press 2 if it's investing in our kids with universal child care, funding public schools, and canceling student debt. Press 3 if it's fighting climate change. Press 4 if it's reforming our criminal justice system. All right, and now we're ready to take another question. We're going to go to Donna in Altoona.
Hey, Donna.
Yes, I was wondering, earlier in your campaign you said you were going to add $200 to all Social Security, and I assume that meant medical people on Social Security.
Yes, ma'am. All Social Security checks, you know, your monthly Social Security check, or for people with disabilities, their monthly disability check. So this would be $200 a month for everybody who receives Social Security or everybody who receives disability. And the idea behind it is to say, frankly, we could afford this. If we ask the people, the top 2%, to put a little more money in, we can both stabilize the Social Security and disability system so they got plenty of money for decades to come, and we can help increase those checks. For me, this is really about our values. People work hard over their lifetimes, and they pay into Social Security. They pay in for that disability insurance. And when the time comes that they need to draw on it, it needs to be enough that people can live in dignity. If we follow through on my plan, when I get my plan through, we're going to lift about 4.5 million people out of poverty in this country. And we're going to provide a lot of flexibility in the budgets for millions and millions more. I've had people at town halls explain to me what $200 a month would mean to them. That's the kind of nation we need to be. We need to be a nation that lives our values every day. And that means we need a strong and bigger Social Security system. And one last thing I want to say to you on this, Donna. This isn't something I just started talking about when I started running for president. I helped build the Expand Social Security caucus in the United States Senate. I've been pushing for this since the first day I got to the Senate, because I've spent a big part of my life looking at what's happening to hardworking people across this country. And the story around retirement and disability is a tough story out there. We got a chance to turn that around in 2020. So help me do this, because I believe people who've worked hard for a living are entitled to it. So help it, make it happen.
All right, thank you, Senator. And unfortunately, that was our last question that we have time for this morning. But I want to ask everyone one last time, now that you've heard from Senator Warren about their plans to caucus tonight, are you supporting Elizabeth at your caucus? Press 1 if you're supporting Elizabeth. Press 2 if you're undecided and we'll talk more with the Team Warren precinct captain tonight at your caucus. Press 3 if you're supporting another candidate. Again, press 1 if you're supporting Elizabeth. Press 2 if you're undecided and we'll talk more with the Team Warren precinct captain tonight at your caucus. Press 3 if you're supporting another candidate. And now I'm going to send it back over to Senator Warren to share some thoughts about this campaign as we head into caucus day.
So thanks, Abby, and thanks for pulling all this together. This has been a lot of fun. You know me, I'd stay here and answer questions all day, but I got to get over to the Senate in just a little bit here. I want to thank everybody who's on this call. I know everyone knows how much is at stake in this election, and everyone knows our number one job is to beat Donald Trump. I think I'm the best person to do that, and I'll tell you why. I'm the one who can pull our party together. I'm the one who treats everybody with respect. I'm the one who's going to pull us in to give us the ideas we can all run on. The one who says both inspiration and inclusiveness. You know, one of the things that's been terrific about being in Iowa over this last year is that I've gotten to know so many of you and the other people who are running for president. People came to this because they had good ideas, because they care about their country. Now, some are still in the race, and a lot aren't. And I'll be honest with you, I miss them, and I'm sorry they're not here. But what they added to the race was important. And it was important to me that our campaign bring in as many of their former staffers and their former volunteers as possible. So now we have folks from Kamala and from Corey, from Julian, from Kirsten, from Bullock. We've got folks from Beto, from all kinds of people. Because, yeah, we have some differences in how we approach this. But at the end of the day, we're all running for the same things. We all want to see an America that works better, not just for those at the top, but works better for everyone. I'm running a campaign that includes as many people as possible. And you know what? That's going to be a campaign that's going to win. That's how we're going to beat Donald Trump in 2020. We're going to run on our values. We're going to run on building the America that we can believe in. We're going to make that happen. And we're going to do it from the grassroots up. Not with billionaires, not with millionaires, from the grassroots up. So I'm grateful to every one of you for all the time you've put in over the last year. I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful to the precinct captains who are on this call and people who are already committed to caucus for me. I'm grateful to people who are thinking about caucusing for me. I need your help, and I need you more than anything to be in this fight. This moment in history is not like any other in our lifetimes. It won't come our way again. So I ask you, get in this fight. This is our moment to dream big, fight hard, and win.
Thank you so much, Senator, for sharing all of your plans for big structural change and the ways we're going to beat Donald Trump. And thank you to everyone on the phone for joining us this morning. I hope we'll see you in Elizabeth's Corner at 7 p.m. tonight. Happy Caucus Day.